Hey guys, so today I'm going to show you how to do an oil change on a BMW E46 M3. So the first thing you're going to want to do is jack the car up, and the correct place to jack the car from the front is the front jack point, which is located basically directly under the engine. And as you can see, I have the jack on it right now, but it looks like that. It's a small disc, about the size of a hockey puck, kind of looks like one too. And that is the correct place to jack the front of the car up. In another video, I'll show you the correct place to jack the car from the rear. And if the jack can't fit under the car because your car is too low, what you can do is get a second jack over there, which I have to do, and jack it up from the side of the car so that you're able to fit in the jack for the front point. So the proper location for the jack stands on the sides of the car are just under where the side markers are, right here. And what they look like are small hard plastic or rubber squares right here. And this is the correct spot to put your jack stands. This is really, in my opinion, the only safe place that you should use on the sides of the car, but that's open to interpretation. Also, something to note, just general jack safety, is make sure that once the car is up on jack stands, they are in the center of these jack pads. And also, I like to give the car a good shake, kind of side to side, and make sure nothing wobble and it's all steady before getting under the car. So next, to get to the drain bolt, before we get under there, we're going to need a 6mm hex, either a hex bit like so, 6mm, along with a standard ratchet, and I like to use an extension just to kind of give you more leverage. Or also acceptable is a 6mm Allen key. Okay, so now that we're under the car, the drain plug is kind of in a hidden location. It's under this panel right here. As you can see, mine's wet from an oil leak that I just recently fixed. So what you're going to do is just kind of pry it off, and you can kind of see in there is the drain plug with the hex center. So next you're going to need some kind of storage container. This is just kind of an old oil container that I managed to pick up from Walmart for pretty cheap. And then I like to throw some old newspapers down just in case there's any extra spillage. So then we're going to take the hex bit and put it into the drain plug and slowly start cranking until you break the bolt. Oh, there it is. A little harder than expected, but and you're going to slowly kind of start to pull it out until the oil comes out. Preferably do this when the car is cold so that the oil has all kind of accumulated in the oil pan, and also you don't get burned on the oil itself, which yes, I have done. So there it is, and there's the oil. So now we're just going to let that drain. Keep in mind, this is if your car doesn't have any oil leaks or hasn't been burning any oil. An E46 M3 takes about 6 quarts, so just bear that in mind with your storage. So after you have finished draining the oil, what you're going to want to do is obviously change the filter. So with the filter, that's one place that I don't really skimp on, and I always try to buy OEM. Mall or Mail, or however you want to pronounce it, is one of the OE suppliers, and that's kind of the filter number. I'll put that in the video description. Here's what the filter looks like, made in Austria, and it should come with the filter cap O-ring gasket, these small kind of O-ring crush washers, This is for the drain plug, this kind of goldish bronze one. And then this one will be for under the oil filter cap, and this one also has a tiny little O-ring for the bottom of the oil filter bolt that holds it down. So I'll show you all that in a second. So under the hood of your car is where the oil filter is going to be located. It's right in front of the intake manifold, which is this big kind of black box. So the top of the bolt for the intake manifold is a 13mm bolt. So you need a 13mm socket and ratchet, and you just attach it like so, and loosen it nicely. This shouldn't be very tight. I'll post the torque specs for it later. I want to say it's somewhere like 22, like something really low. So we're just going to loosen this nicely. And before you actually go ahead and remove it, what you're gonna want to do is unclip this sensor just to give yourself a little bit of room. So the way that this sensor kind of unclips is you press in on this metallic thing and just kind of wiggle it off. And like so. I like to kind of tuck it away a little bit. Be gentle with it. It can break, obviously. Also still need a little bit of loosening. So we'll just do this by hand. So it's off now. And we're going to kind of pull them both off at the same time. They have little tabs that let you lift it off. And when you pull it out, be careful. There's going to be a good amount of oil. Sometimes you might find it easier to just pull the bolt out. I'm doing this one-handed, so forgive the clumsiness that I have here. So we're just going to remove that cap. As you can see, filled with oil, and the oil filter itself. Be careful here. Yeah, it's going to be leaking a little bit. I'm actually going to pause the video here so I can remove this with two hands and not leak oil all over my engine bay. So now, after you've taken off the lid and the bolt that holds the lid in, what you're going to want to do is get to replacing all of the O-rings. So if you remember, this copper O-ring that I mentioned earlier goes on the drain plug, just like so. Always replace this. It is not reusable. You always need a new one, and that's why oil filters kits include it. This small O-ring I mentioned earlier is going to go here. Hard to see. At the tip of this bolt. And there's actually a pick tool that you can use to kind of pry it off. I typically end up using just kind of like a small flathead. It's not the easiest thing to get off. And then this last washer will slip on the end of the bolt just under here, and we'll basically do the same effect as the drain plug one. And then lastly, there's a thick O-ring that sometimes a lot of people forget to replace because it's kind of hard to see, but it's right here in the edge of the lid. And again, you just kind of want to pry it up and pull it out. And when you put the new one in, something to kind of do to make sure it seals correctly is just dab your finger in a little bit of oil and kind of lube it around the edge of this O-ring before you place it back on the lid. Okay, so now that you've replaced all the O-rings, what you're going to want to do is just drop the new filter in. Pretty self-explanatory. If you want, you can kind of clean the area under the filter. I don't think it's a massive deal. I personally don't do it, but I know a lot of people do. Some people also like to pour just some new oil over the filter to let extra oil kind of flush out, and also to have the filter a little bit pre-soaked for when you start the car up, so there's not so much oil starvation. Again, preference. So after you replace the filter, you're just going to take the lid and the bolt and put them on one at a time because, again, I'm doing this one-handed, so cut me some slack. So you're going to replace the lid like so, making sure it is on there correctly, and then take the bolt with your new O-rings attached and just drop it in like so. I like to hand tighten a little bit, make the job a little bit easier. Get it nice and tight, make sure everything's kind of centered in the middle here. And then from there, what you're going to want to do is get a torque wrench if you can. If not, not the big end of the world. But the correct torque spec for this is 24 foot-pounds. So you can kind of just put your socket on there. This is still pretty loose, so I'm going to have to tighten this a little bit by hand first, just to get it nice and tight before break out the torque wrench. A little difficult because it's oily, but that should be nice and snug. And then, like I said, I'm going to take your torque wrench. Again, apologies for all the video shaking. It's my first time making a video. And we're just going to tighten it tight. Keep going until it's, like I said, lid centered and just nice and tight. Until we hear the click of the torque wrench. No jerking motions, gentle. Oh, and there it was. That was a click. So that's it. It's tight. Everything's snug. For now, we're done here under the hood. Okay, so back under the car, as you can see, the oil has pretty much slowed to a drip. If you want, you can let this sit for a few hours till there's not a single thing coming out. I don't really want to do that and just kind of want to get this finished with, which may or not be the best thing for you. But again, what I'm going to do is just kind of clean the area off a little bit. And we're going to replace the drain plug. It's, you know, with the new O-ring and all that, and we're just going to kind of screw it in nicely. So again, I'm just going to want to screw it in. I like to use an extension on the handle. Be careful not to strip your drain plug, because then you will be super screwed. Okay, so after you finish tightening the bolt, again, the torque for that is 18 foot-pounds. You're just going to want to grab the cap that was on there before and put the front of it in the side that is facing the front of the car, and just kind of press it into place, and that's it. Now we're going to fill it up with oil again. So under the hood of the car, the oil filter cap is just located right here. So you just screw it off easily, comes out, and then you begin to fill the oil. These cars take 6 liters or 6.3 quarts is the conversion. For brand of oil, most people recommend Castrol because that's what BMW recommends, but that's also because their sponsor at the time for Racing Series were Castrol, and now it's Mobil, so BMW dealerships sell Mobil oil. Personally, I use Liquimoly. It's a fairly, about the same price as Castrol, a little bit cheaper. It's available on Amazon and some other retailers. And the oil weight that you should always use is 10W60. That is the weight that is recommended for these high revving motors. So after you finish putting in 6 liters, again 6 liters or 6.3 quarts, simply take the cap, line up the tabs, and just a quick note, you can, kind of fun fact, so you can see it says Castrol is recommended, but again that had to do with the sponsorship kind of thing. So you're just going to put the cap, takes you about a half turn, and you're done. Clean everything up, make sure everything's tightened, and dispose of your oil properly, and you are good to go. Done changing your oil on the E46 M3. Apologize for any shakiness or confusion in the video. First time making an instructional video. If you guys have any ideas about what you want me to show you how to do, just comment below. I'll be making more of these videos as I do more work on my car. I've owned this car for almost 2 years now, and I've pretty much done everything on it already. But I thought I'd start making these videos as a way to kind of show people things that they may not be able to find easily on the internet. So thanks, and tune in next time.